If you've ever searched for cheap jobs online at 3 in the morning, you already know the kind of listings I'm talking about. Warehouse worker, night security, data entry. Half of them are scams. The other half pay so little you'd spend more money getting there than you'd make. So when I found the listing that changed my life, I almost scrolled past it. It was only 3 lines long. Property evaluation specialist. $2,000 per night. Transportation provided. No experience necessary. Must be willing to work alone. That was it. No company name. No logo. No website. No phone number. Just an email address. Normally I would have ignored it. But 2 months earlier I'd lost my apartment. I was sleeping on my cousin's couch in exchange for fixing things around his house. Every day he'd ask if I'd heard back from any employers. Every day I'd lie and say I was waiting. The truth was no one wanted to hire a 23-year-old with no degree and a resume that looked like someone had thrown darts at a career board. Retail. Delivery. Construction. Warehouse. Security. Nothing lasted. So I emailed them. 5 minutes later, I got a reply. Report to the address below tomorrow at 8 p.m. Wear comfortable clothing. Do not bring anyone with you. Do not ask questions until orientation. Attached was a location. Not an office. Just an empty parking lot outside my city. I remember laughing. I even showed my cousin. You know, that's probably how people get kidnapped. I know. So, you're going? I need the money. He shook his head. If you disappear, I'm telling everyone I tried to stop you. I wish I'd listened. The parking lot was almost completely empty. One flickering light pole. An abandoned gas station across the road. Nothing else. I arrived 15 minutes early. At exactly 8 o'clock. A black shuttle bus rolled into the lot. No company logo. No license plates. The doors opened without anyone stepping out. Inside were 6 people. No one looked at each other. No one spoke. I climbed aboard anyway. The driver wore a gray uniform with no name tag. He didn't greet me. He simply pointed toward an empty seat. The doors closed. The bus drove. For almost 2 hours. Nobody said a word. Not even the driver. No music. No radio. Nothing. Just the sound of tires on pavement. Eventually curiosity got the better of me. I leaned toward the guy beside me. He looked around my age. Brown jacket. Messy hair. Dark circles under his eyes. You know what this job actually is? He stared straight ahead. Then quietly said, "Don't talk after the first checkpoint." What checkpoint? He looked at me for the first time. His face had gone pale. You'll know. Then he refused to speak again. About 30 minutes later, the bus slowed. Outside the windows, there was nothing. No buildings. No houses. No gas stations. Only trees. The driver stopped beside what looked like an old security gate. Except, there wasn't anyone working there. No guard. No booth. Just a white barrier blocking the road. The driver rolled down his window. He didn't show an ID. He didn't press a button. He simply said, 7 passengers. Nothing happened. 10 seconds passed. Then, the barrier lifted by itself. The bus continued. I looked back through the rear window. The gate was gone. Not hidden. Gone. Just empty road behind us. I rubbed my eyes. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe there'd been another turn. Maybe. That's what I kept telling myself. The road became strange after that. Not haunted. Not creepy. Just wrong. Every mile marker read the same number. Mile 18. Again. Mile 18. Again. Mile 18. I counted 9 of them. The GPS on my phone stopped working. No signal. Then the map itself disappeared. Just a gray screen. I restarted the phone. Nothing. Compass. Gone. Offline maps. Gone. Even the clock froze. 11:47 p.m. It never changed again. One by one, everyone on the bus took out their phones. Every screen showed exactly the same time. 11:47. No signal. No maps. No emergency calls. Nobody reacted. Except me. I laughed nervously. What the hell? The guy beside me whispered without moving his head. I told you. We reached the facility around midnight. At least, I think it was midnight. The frozen clock still read 11:47. The building looked like an ordinary government office. Gray concrete. 3 floors. Perfectly clean. No signs. No flags. Nothing identifying who owned it. Inside, everything smelled new. Fresh paint. Fresh carpet. Fresh coffee. As if the building had opened that morning. A woman greeted us. She looked to be in her 50s. Perfect posture. Gray suit. Silver hair tied neatly behind her head. She smiled politely. Welcome. My name is Director Hale. You've all been selected because of your psychological profiles. Nobody remembered taking a psychological test. She continued. Your work is simple. You will inspect residential properties. You will document any structural abnormalities. You will leave before sunrise. Someone finally raised a hand. What exactly are we inspecting? She smiled again. Houses. Another man frowned. Whose houses? Pause. Then. Houses that should not exist. The room became quiet. Someone laughed. Director Hale didn't. She handed each of us a folder. Mine contained photographs, blueprints, a flashlight, a disposable camera, a notebook, and a list titled, Rules for Field Evaluation. I figured it was some elaborate training exercise, until I read Rule 1. Never enter a house whose front door is already open. Rule 2. If you hear someone calling your name before entering, report the address immediately and leave. Rule 3. Every assigned house has exactly one front door. If you find 2, you have already stayed too long. I looked up. Everyone else had stopped smiling too. One woman quietly asked, Is this some kind of prank? Director Hale answered without hesitation. I sincerely hope that's what you believe. They split us into separate rooms. No partners. No teams. Each person received a single address. Mine was handwritten. Ashwood Lane. House 14. I searched the map they'd given me. Something felt odd. There were only 14 houses on the entire street. No cross streets. No nearby town. Just one road. Beginning and ending. In the middle of nowhere. Before we left, Director Hale stopped me. She looked directly into my eyes. You've read the rules? Yeah. Good. She hesitated. Then she added something that wasn't written anywhere. If the house asks you to stay, don't answer. I laughed. The house. She didn't laugh back. No matter what voice you hear. No matter who it sounds like. Leave before sunrise. For the first time that night, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. I picked up my folder, walked toward the waiting van, and drove to a place that doesn't appear on any map. At the time, I believed I was going to inspect an abandoned house. I had no idea that I was actually being evaluated, and I definitely didn't know that by sunrise, one of the 7 people who arrived on that shuttle bus would no longer exist. Not dead, not missing, simply erased. And the worst part? None of us would remember who it was. The drive to Ashwood Lane took almost 40 minutes. The road narrowed until it was barely wide enough for the van. Dense pine trees crowded both sides, their branches knitting together overhead until the moon disappeared behind them. I tried the radio. Only static. I checked my phone again. Still frozen. 11:47 p.m. No signal. No GPS. No battery percentage. Just the time that refused to move. Eventually the trees opened, revealing a small neighborhood that looked as though it had been built in the early 1990s and then abandoned overnight. Every lawn was perfectly trimmed. Every mailbox stood upright. Every porch light glowed with the same warm yellow light. Yet there wasn't a single parked car. Not one bicycle. No toys. No garbage bins. No signs that anyone had ever lived there. The street sign read, Ashwood Lane. Exactly as it appeared on my folder. I drove slowly past House 1, House 2, House 3. Each home looked different, but something about them felt copied. Every curtain hung at exactly the same height. Every tree had been trimmed into nearly identical shapes. Every front window reflected the exact same patch of sky, even though they faced different directions. By the time I reached house 14, my stomach was in knots. It was an ordinary two-story home. White siding, dark roof, a wooden porch with a single rocking chair. Nothing about it screamed horror. If someone had shown me a picture online, I'd have assumed it belonged to a retired couple. I parked across the street and opened my folder. Objective: conduct a complete interior inspection. Photograph any structural abnormalities. Remain inside no longer than 2 hours. Leave before sunrise. I looked back at the rules. Rule 1. Never enter a house whose front door is already open. The front door was closed. Good. Rule 2. If you hear someone calling your name before entering, report the address immediately and leave. Silence. Good. Rule 3. Every assigned house has exactly one front door. If you find two, you have already stayed too long. I looked up. One front door. Everything seemed normal. I grabbed my flashlight, camera, and notebook before walking across the street. The air felt strangely heavy. Not cold, not hot, just thick, as if the neighborhood were holding its breath. Halfway up the driveway, I noticed something odd. There were no footprints. Not in the dirt. Not on the porch. Nothing. The house looked maintained, but no one had walked to or from it in a very long time. I climbed the porch steps. The rocking chair moved. Just once. The slow, gentle creak. The wind hadn't blown all night. I froze. The chair stopped. I waited almost a full minute before knocking. 3 slow knocks. Nothing. I tried again. Silence. According to the instructions, I was authorized to enter. I reached for the doorknob. Unlocked. The hinges barely made a sound as the door swung inward. The smell hit me first. Fresh coffee. Laundry detergent. A hint of cinnamon. It smelled like someone had just cleaned the house before leaving for work. I stepped inside. Hello? No answer. I took one photograph of the living room. Everything appeared ordinary. Family couch. Television. Bookshelf. Wall clock. The clock read 11:47. I frowned. Every clock in the house couldn't possibly be wrong. Could it? I made a note. All clocks frozen at 11:47. As I lowered my notebook, something clicked behind me. The front door had closed. I hadn't touched it. I turned the handle. Still unlocked. It opened normally. I stepped halfway onto the porch just to reassure myself. The neighborhood hadn't changed. Still empty. Still silent. I laughed under my breath. Nerves. I stepped back inside. The moment both feet crossed the doorway, the wall clock ticked. Once. A loud, metallic tick. Then it stopped again. 11:47. My skin prickled. I photographed the clock. When I checked the picture on the disposable camera, the clock wasn't there. There was an empty space on the wall where it should have been. I looked up. The clock was hanging exactly where I'd seen it. I looked back at the photo. Blank wall. I took another picture. Same result. No clock. A voice echoed somewhere upstairs. Not loud. Not threatening. Soft. Almost comforting. Hello. I stopped breathing. Rule 2. If you hear someone calling your name before entering, leave. But I was already inside. The rule didn't say what to do now. The voice came again. Is someone there? It sounded elderly. Weak. Like an old woman who needed help. I stared at the staircase. Every instinct told me to walk back to the van. Instead, I wrote one sentence in my notebook. Possible occupant on second floor. Then I started climbing the stairs. The first step creaked. The second didn't. The third felt strangely soft beneath my boot. Like stepping onto thick carpet. Except the stairs were hardwood. I looked down. For a split second, I could have sworn the wood had sunk under my weight. Then it was solid again. By the time I reached the landing, every room door was closed. 4 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. Silence. I called out again. Hello. Nothing. Then, a door at the end of the hallway slowly opened by itself. Just a few inches. Darkness waited inside. And somewhere beyond it, I heard someone whisper my name. The room at the end of the hall. My name came again, barely louder than a whisper. Ethan. I didn't move. I had never told anyone at the facility my first name. The folder only had my employee number. Yet somehow, the voice knew exactly who I was. It wasn't threatening. If anything, it sounded relieved, like someone who had been waiting a very long time for another human being. I should have turned around. I should have walked back downstairs, gotten into the van, and driven until the trees disappeared in my rearview mirror. Instead, I reached for the doorknob. The brass felt warm, almost as if someone had been holding it seconds before I arrived. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. At least, that's what I thought. It looked like an ordinary guest bedroom. A neatly made bed, a wooden dresser, one bedside lamp, a single window overlooking the backyard. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust except for one thing: the rocking chair beside the window. It looked brand new. Slowly, it rocked forward, then back, forward, back. No wind, no sound, just movement. I lifted the disposable camera and took a picture. The flash exploded across the room. For a split second, I saw another figure sitting in the chair. An old woman, white hair, hands folded in her lap, looking directly at me. Then the light disappeared. The chair was empty again. I swallowed hard. Nope. I backed toward the hallway. As soon as I crossed the doorway, the camera clicked by itself. I hadn't touched the shutter. One extra photograph had been taken. Confused, I checked the counter. It had dropped from 23 exposures to 21. 2 photographs were missing. I knew I'd only taken one. I frowned. Maybe the camera had malfunctioned. I slipped it back into my pocket. That's when I noticed the hallway. It was longer. Much longer. When I'd first walked upstairs, the hallway couldn't have been more than 20 feet. Now, I couldn't see the staircase anymore. The corridor stretched ahead of me, disappearing into darkness. Every door looked identical. Every ceiling light glowed with the same dim yellow bulb. I turned around. The bedroom behind me was gone. There was only another hallway. My pulse hammered in my ears. No. I spun in circles. Hallway, hallway, hallway. No staircase, no windows, no way back. The house had changed. I forced myself to breathe. Panic would only make things worse. I picked one direction and started walking. 30 seconds later, I passed the same family portrait hanging on the wall. A smiling mother, a father, 2 children. Except, their faces were blurry, not scratched out, not damaged, just impossible to focus on. I leaned closer. Every time I tried to look directly at one face, my eyes slid to another, as though my brain refused to process them. I wrote another note. Photographs distort facial features. The moment my pen left the paper, someone answered. Correct. I nearly dropped the notebook. The voice came from directly behind me. I turned. Nobody. Only the portrait. I stared at it. The father's face slowly became clear. Not completely. Just enough for me to recognize one thing. He was wearing the same gray uniform as the shuttle bus driver. My mouth went dry. I stepped away from the wall. The picture changed again. Now the father's face was blurred once more, as if it had never been visible. I hurried forward. The hallway finally ended at another staircase. Relief flooded through me. I rushed down the steps 2 at a time. Only, they didn't lead to the first floor. They led to another second floor. Same wallpaper. Same carpet. Same hallway. Same 4 doors. I stood frozen. Then I heard footsteps. Not mine. Someone else's. Slow. Measured. Coming from somewhere below. 1 step. Pause. Another step. Pause. Someone, or something, was climbing toward me. I killed my flashlight. The hallway fell into near darkness. The footsteps continued. Closer. Closer. I held my breath. A shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. It was human-shaped. Tall. Too tall. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling. It didn't have a face. Only smooth skin where its features should have been. It reached the landing and stopped. Slowly, it turned its head toward me. even without eyes. I knew it was looking directly at me. Then, in a voice that sounded exactly like Director Hale, it spoke. Employee number 47. You've already broken the first unwritten rule. I couldn't answer. It tilted its head. You looked for a way out. It took one slow step toward me. This house doesn't like that. Another step. Run. The thing smiled. Not with a mouth, with a sound. A quiet, impossible laugh echoed through every wall of the house at once. And every bedroom door clicked open. Every open door. The sound hit all at once. 4 bedroom doors. 1 bathroom door. 5 sharp clicks. Then, silence. The faceless figure didn't move. It simply stood there waiting. I remembered something Director Hale had said before I left. If the house asks you to stay, don't answer. She hadn't said anything about opening doors. I took a slow step backward. The figure matched me. 1 step. No faster. No slower. It wasn't chasing me. It was herding me toward the rooms. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I reached into my pocket and wrapped my hand around the flashlight. Then I did the stupidest thing I'd done all night. I shined it directly at the figure. The beam landed on its chest. For less than a second, its body became transparent. Not invisible. Transparent. Like clear glass. And inside, I saw people. Dozens of them. Frozen in place. Men. Women. Teenagers. Even children. Each one pressed against the inside of the figure as if trapped beneath a layer of ice. Every face wore the same expression. They weren't screaming. They were pleading. Then the flashlight flickered. The figure became solid again. My blood ran cold. Whatever stood in front of me wasn't one creature. Was many. The nearest bedroom door creaked wider. A child's voice whispered from inside. Dad. I froze. It sounded exactly like my younger brother. He had died in a car accident 9 years earlier. No one at the company could possibly know that. Dad. The voice cracked. Please. For one impossible second, I almost walked into the room. Then I noticed something. My brother had never called me Dad. The realization hit like ice water. The house wasn't speaking to me. It was searching me. Trying different memories. Trying different voices. Trying to find the one I couldn't ignore. I backed away. Immediately, the voice changed. My mother's voice. Ethan? Another step back. Now it became my cousin. Dude, where are you? Another step. Director Hale. Employee number 47. Another. The shuttle bus driver. Then, my own voice. Help me. I covered my ears. It didn't matter. The voices weren't coming through the air anymore. They were inside my head. I turned and sprinted down the hallway. The faceless figure didn't follow. It simply watched, as if it already knew where I was going. I reached the staircase. Without thinking, I ran down it. This time, I actually reached the first floor. The front door was only 20 feet away. Relief flooded through me. I laughed. I made it. I grabbed the doorknob. Twisted. Pulled. Nothing. It wouldn't move. The door that had opened so easily before was now sealed shut. I slammed my shoulder into it. Once. Twice. 3 times. The frame didn't even shake. Then the wall beside the door spoke. Very quietly. You forgot to finish the inspection. I slowly turned around. The living room had changed. The couch was gone. The television was gone. The bookshelves were gone. Only one object remained. A wooden table. On it sat a thick binder. Across the front, embossed in faded gold letters, were the words. Property Evaluation Reports. Curiosity 1. I opened it. Inside were hundreds of reports, each dated decades apart. Every report ended exactly the same way. Evaluation incomplete. Employee retained. My stomach tightened. Retained? Not deceased. Not missing. Retained. I flipped to the last completed report. The employee's name had been scratched out. But beneath it, someone had written a message in trembling handwriting. If you are reading this, do not let the house learn your regrets. Another line. It can only become someone you miss after it knows who they are. I felt the air behind me grow colder. Very slowly, I looked over my shoulder. The rocking chair from the upstairs bedroom now sat in the middle of the living room, gently rocking back and forth. Someone was sitting in it. I couldn't see their face, only the back of their head. Dark hair, a familiar jacket, the same brown jacket worn by the young man who had sat beside me on the shuttle bus. The chair stopped moving. The man spoke without turning around. I thought I was the first one here. He paused. Then he laughed. A tired, broken laugh. I've been here for 32 years. My mouth went dry. That was impossible. He had been sitting beside me only a few hours ago. Slowly, the chair began to turn. The employee who never left. The chair turned just enough for me to see his face. It was him. The same man from the shuttle bus. The brown jacket. The messy hair. The dark circles under his eyes. Only now, he looked much older. His skin was pale. His beard had grown wild. Deep wrinkles lined his face, even though he couldn't have been older than 25 when I'd met him. His eyes were the worst part. They looked exhausted. Not like someone who hadn't slept. Like someone who hadn't stopped waiting. For decades. He stared at me for several seconds before speaking. You actually made it this far. His voice was calm. Almost disappointed. I was hoping you wouldn't. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You were on the bus. He nodded. I still am. I frowned. What? He sighed. The house doesn't experience time the way we do. I got off that shuttle in 1994. I laughed. It came out as a nervous cough. That's impossible. I know. He looked toward the front window. But impossible things happen here every night. I stepped closer. If you've been here for 30 years, why haven't you left? He smiled. I have. What? I've walked out of this house hundreds of times. He pointed toward the front door. Every exit leads back inside. I turned to look. The front door was gone. In its place stood a plain white wall. I blinked. The door returned. My pulse quickened. It changes whenever it wants. The man slowly stood. He moved like every joint in his body hurt. My name's Daniel. I shook his hand automatically. His skin was ice cold. I've learned a few things. He looked me directly in the eyes. First, the house isn't haunted. It's hungry. I waited. It doesn't eat people. It eats possibilities. I must have looked confused because he continued. Every choice you've ever almost made. Every life you could have lived. It feeds on them. I didn't understand. Daniel walked to a family photograph hanging on the wall. Look. I stepped beside him. The picture wasn't the same one I'd seen upstairs. This one showed me. I was standing outside a restaurant. Older. Maybe 30. Wearing a wedding ring. Holding the hand of a little girl with curly brown hair. She couldn't have been older than 5. She was smiling at me. Dad. I whispered. Daniel nodded. That's one of the lives you never lived. I stared at the picture. I don't have a daughter. In this reality. He emphasized the last 2 words. The house collects the others. He pointed at another photograph. This time, I wore a military uniform. Another. I was sitting in a hospital bed. Missing my left arm. Another. Gray hair. Surrounded by grandchildren. Another. A gravestone. Age 24. Cause of death unreadable. Every photograph showed a different version of my life. Every version felt real. I couldn't explain why. I simply knew each one belonged to me. Daniel quietly said, the longer you stay, the more futures it consumes. I looked at him. What happens when they're all gone? He didn't answer. Instead, he rolled up his sleeve. His arm was covered in names. Hundreds of them. Written in black ink. Some crossed out. Some faded. Some almost unreadable. What are those? My memories. He spoke so casually it made my stomach turn. I write them down before they disappear. He pointed to one near his wrist. My mother's name. I can't remember her face anymore. Another. My hometown. I know I had one. I just don't know where. Another. My birthday. Gone. He smiled sadly. I used to have a wife. I looked around. Where is she? I don't know. I remember loving someone. I don't remember who. The room fell silent. The house groaned. Not the wood. Not the pipes. The entire structure let out a deep, low sound, like a whale calling from beneath the ocean. Daniel's face changed instantly. We're out of time. What do you mean? It knows. What knows? He looked toward the ceiling. It knows I told you. Every light in the house went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the moonlight remained. The footsteps. Dozens of them. Above us. Below us. Inside the walls. Walking. Running. Crawling. The house sounded full. Daniel grabbed my arm. Listen carefully. This is the only chance you'll get. He reached into his pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. It was old. Yellowed. The edges were falling apart. I wrote this on my first night. Don't open it yet. Promise me. I promise. He nodded. When you hear the knocking, no matter what happens, don't answer the front door. A loud knock echoed through the house. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same pattern I'd used when I first arrived. Daniel closed his eyes. They're early. Another knock. This time harder. Then a voice. My own voice. Ethan. Open the door. I'm still outside. Every hair on my body stood on end. I looked toward the entrance. I had walked into this house alone. So who was knocking? The man outside the door. Another knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Exactly the way I'd knocked when I first arrived. My own voice came again. Ethan, open the door. I know you're in there. Daniel didn't even look toward the entrance. He kept his eyes on me. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, do not open it. I nodded. The knocking stopped. For a moment, the entire house became silent. Then, something slid beneath the front door. A folded sheet of paper. It stopped at my feet. I stared at it. Daniel whispered, "Don't touch it." The paper unfolded by itself. It was my property evaluation report. Not a copy. The original. At the bottom, where my signature should have been, someone had already signed my name. Every letter was perfect. Every stroke matched my handwriting. Below it was a single sentence. Employee has volunteered to remain. My stomach dropped. I never signed this. I know. Daniel took a step back. The house did. The knocking returned. Only this time. It came from every wall. The ceiling. The floor. The windows. Even the staircase behind us. Every surface echoed with the same rhythm. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Pause. Then every sound stopped at once. A key turned in the front door. Very slowly, the handle began to move. I stepped backward. The door opened inward. A man walked inside. He was wearing my clothes, my jacket, my boots, my watch, even the small scar on my left eyebrow. He looked exactly like me. Not almost. Exactly. He smiled. There you are. He looked around the living room. I've been looking everywhere. I couldn't speak. He laughed. I guess this is always the awkward part. Daniel quietly muttered, "Don't answer him." The other me tilted his head. You know who I am. His smile widened. I'm the one who's supposed to leave. A cold wave rushed through my body. What? The word slipped out before I could stop it. Daniel closed his eyes. You answered. The copy smiled. Thank you. The room shook violently. The walls groaned. Somewhere upstairs, glass shattered. The lights flickered back to life for a single second. During that flash, I saw dozens of people standing throughout the house. In the kitchen, on the stairs, in the hallway, all of them silently watching. When darkness returned, they were gone. The copy took another step toward me. I've been practicing. He spoke with my voice, my mannerisms, even the nervous way I rubbed my thumb against my palm. You'll be surprised how quickly people stop noticing the little differences. Daniel grabbed my shoulder. He's lying. The copy shrugged. Am I? He looked directly at me. Your cousin already believes I'm you. My blood froze. No. I called him 2 hours ago. I apologized for worrying him. I told him the job was going great. I felt sick. You're lying. He smiled. Ask him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen was no longer frozen. The time had changed. It displayed dozens of missed messages. Every one from my cousin. Glad you're okay. Call me tomorrow. Stay safe. The copy casually slipped the phone back into his pocket. I don't need to replace you forever. I only need to replace you long enough. Long enough for everyone to remember me instead. Daniel stepped between us. You don't belong outside. The copy laughed. Neither do you. For the first time. Its expression changed. The smile disappeared. Its face became completely blank. Its skin rippled like water. For a split second, I saw hundreds of different faces beneath it. Young, male, female. Every one of them trying to surface. Every one of them trapped. Then my face returned. I've been Ethan before. I've been Daniel. I've been every evaluator who thought they could leave. Daniel whispered, "Run." This time, I didn't hesitate. I sprinted toward the kitchen. The copy didn't chase me. It simply called after me. You still haven't figured it out. I reached the back door. Locked. I smashed the window beside it with a chair. The glass exploded outward. Fresh night air rushed inside. Without thinking, I climbed through. My boots hit soft grass. For the first time since entering the house, I was outside. I laughed in disbelief. I had escaped. Then I looked up. The neighborhood was gone. No Ashwood Lane. No other houses. No street. No trees. The house now stood alone. In the middle of an endless black field stretching farther than I could see. Above it, there was no moon. No stars. No sky. Only darkness. Behind me the back door creaked open. Daniel stood in the doorway. His face had gone pale. Ethan. I smiled. I made it. He didn't smile back. No. His voice trembled. You stepped into the yard. Slowly. He pointed behind me. I turned. Hundreds of houses stood in the darkness. Silent. Identical. Each with a single porch light glowing. Each with someone standing in the front window. Watching me. Then, every porch light switched on at exactly the same moment. And every front door began to open. The neighborhood that shouldn't exist. For a second I couldn't breathe. There weren't hundreds of houses. There were thousands. They stretched across the darkness in perfect rows, disappearing beyond the horizon. Every single one was different. A Victorian home with peeling blue paint. A modern glass mansion. A tiny farmhouse. A suburban duplex. A cabin that looked as if it had been carved from a single giant tree. Different styles. Different decades. Different countries. But they all shared one thing. Every porch light was on. And every front door stood open. Figures began stepping outside. Not running. Not rushing. Walking. Slowly. Calmly. As though they'd been expecting me. Some wore business suits. Others looked like construction workers. One still had a firefighter's uniform on. Another carried a camera around his neck. A teenage girl hugged a stuffed rabbit. An elderly woman leaned on a cane. They were all different. Yet every one of them had the same empty expression. Daniel grabbed my arm and pulled me back toward House 14. The moment my foot crossed the back doorway, the endless neighborhood vanished. The backyard returned. A wooden fence. An old swing. A rusted barbecue grill. Nothing else. I stumbled backward, gasping for air. What was that? Daniel shut the door and locked it. The property line. The what? The yard isn't outside. It's the place between the houses. I stared at him. There are more of these? He laughed bitterly. You still think this is one house? He walked into the kitchen and opened a cabinet. Inside was a dusty map. Not of a city. Not of a country. Just an endless grid. Every square had a handwritten number. 1,742. 51,903. Millions of tiny numbered lots. I looked closer. These are all houses? Daniel nodded. Every impossible house. Everywhere. I looked at one corner of the map. Some numbers had been crossed out. What does that mean? His face darkened. They escaped. Hope surged through me. So people have gotten out. He looked away. No. The houses escaped. I frowned. What? Daniel pointed to one of the crossed-out numbers. That house appeared in Chicago in 1986. Another. That one was found beneath a subway station in Moscow. Another. A family walked into this one while hiking in Japan. He folded the map. They don't stay here forever. They're released. A chill ran down my spine. You mean? They appear in the real world. He nodded once. When one finishes feeding, it moves. Silence filled the room. I suddenly remembered something. The company. They know about this. Daniel laughed. They built this place. I stared at him. No. They didn't build the houses. They built the roads. The buses. The rules. They're trying to slow them down. That made even less sense. If they know they're dangerous, why send people inside? Daniel looked exhausted. Because someone has to measure how hungry they are. Before I could ask another question, a loud metallic crack echoed upstairs. Then another. Then another. Like dozens of picture frames falling from the walls. Daniel's expression changed instantly. It's starting. What is? The inspection. I thought that was my job. He looked at me with genuine pity. You were never inspecting the house. The house has been inspecting you. The floor beneath us trembled. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The walls seemed to breathe, slowly expanding, then shrinking, expanding, then shrinking again. A deep voice echoed through every room at once. Not male, not female, not even human. It sounded like hundreds of whispers speaking together. Evaluation Phase 2. Every light turned bright white. The walls dissolved. The ceiling disappeared. The furniture melted away like wax. Within seconds, the entire house transformed into a vast circular room. Perfectly white. No doors. No windows. Only one object remained. A long conference table. 7 chairs. 6 of them were occupied. I recognized every face. The passengers from the shuttle bus. The woman with the red scarf. The older man with glasses. The teenager wearing headphones. The nervous accountant. The silent woman who never looked up. Daniel. Except this Daniel looked 25 again. Exactly as he'd looked on the bus. They all turned toward the final empty chair. Waiting. For me. One by one. They smiled. Not happily. Sadly. As if they'd watched this happen many times before. The youngest passenger spoke first. We've been waiting for you. I looked at Daniel beside me. He was gone. Only the younger version remained. Then every person at the table spoke the exact same sentence in perfect unison. Please. Don't make the choice we made. Before I could ask what they meant, another chair slowly emerged from the white floor. Directly behind me. Waiting. For its next employee. Director Hale's truth. The chair stopped less than a foot in front of me. No one at the table moved. No one spoke. They simply watched. Then the white room dissolved. The conference table faded. The 6 employees vanished. I was standing back in Director Hale's office. The same spotless carpet. The same gray walls. The same coffee I'd smelled when I first arrived. Director Hale stood beside the window with her hands folded behind her back. You've done better than most. I stared at her. What is this place? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to a bookshelf and pulled out a worn leather binder. She placed it on the desk. The cover read, Employee Records. I opened it. The first page contained a photograph from 1953. 7 people standing in front of House 14. Smiling. One face had been scratched away. The caption underneath read, 6 employees successfully returned. I counted again. There were only 6 visible people. Yet the empty space where the 7th person had stood was obvious. Someone had been erased from the photograph itself. Director Hale quietly said, Reality repairs itself. It doesn't like empty spaces. I turned another page. 5 people. The caption read, 6 returned. Another. 4 visible employees. Caption, 5 returned. Every year. The numbers stopped making sense. The survivors always remembered fewer people than had actually entered. I looked up. Who are they? They're everyone who escaped. My heart skipped. You said no one escaped. I lied. Why? Because no one escapes completely. She walked to the window. Outside wasn't the forest anymore. It was the endless neighborhood I'd seen from the backyard. Thousands of impossible houses. All silent. All waiting. We're caretakers. She said it so calmly that it made me angry. No. You're feeding people to those things. She nodded. Yes. The honesty caught me off guard. Then why? She looked at me with genuine sadness. Because the alternative is worse. She opened a steel cabinet. Inside were hundreds of photographs from around the world. Families smiling in front of new homes. Real estate advertisements. Construction sites. Ordinary places. She handed me one. It showed a suburban family standing outside a perfectly ordinary blue house. The date was last year. What am I looking at? House 931. It escaped. Another photograph. An apartment building. House 4712. Another. A rural farmhouse. House 18. I felt sick. They're hiding. They always have. She walked to a large map covering the wall. Small red lights blinked across every continent. North America. Europe. Asia. Africa. Australia. Thousands of them. Each one marked a house. Every red light is a property we've identified. What about the ones you haven't found? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I looked at the endless sea of lights. There were blank spaces. Far too many blank spaces. Director Hale took a slow breath. The houses are alive. They reproduce. They learn. And every decade, they become better at pretending to be ordinary. I whispered, "How many are there?" We stopped counting. Silence settled over the office. Then she asked me something completely unexpected. "What do you remember about your father?" I frowned. "My father? Tell me his name." I opened my mouth. Nothing. I couldn't remember. I tried again. Still nothing. Not even the first letter. Panic spread through my chest. She nodded gently. "It has already begun." I stumbled backward. "No. You don't lose memories all at once. You lose the ones that anchor you." She handed me a photograph. It showed a little boy holding his father's hand. The little boy was me. The man's face was gone. Not blurred. Not scratched away. Simply empty. As though reality had never decided what it should look like. I felt tears forming. I don't remember this. You lived it." She looked genuinely sorry. "The house has already eaten that future." I clenched the photograph until it crumpled in my hand. There has to be a way to stop it. For the first time since I'd met her, Director Hale smiled. "There is." Hope surged through me. "How?" Her smile disappeared. "You take my job." The room fell silent. "I don't understand." She slowly removed her gray employee badge. The plastic was faded from years of use. On the back, someone had scratched a sentence with a knife. "The director must never retire." She placed the badge on the desk between us. "I'm dying." I looked at her. She didn't appear sick. She looked tired. Very, very tired. "I've been Director Hale since 1971. My mind raced. "That's impossible." She laughed quietly. "So was everything else you've seen tonight." She pushed the badge toward me. "If no one takes this position before sunrise, the houses will no longer need permission." Every red light on the map suddenly turned green. One by one. Across the entire world. Director Hale closed her eyes. "They've already started moving." Then every phone in the office rang at the exact same moment. Not one phone. Hundreds. The sound filled every corner of the building. She answered the nearest one. Listened for only a second. Then whispered, Another house just appeared. She looked directly at me. It opened, inside a children's hospital. And for the first time all night, Director Hale looked afraid. The last shift. Director Hale didn't wait for my answer. She walked out of the office. I followed her into the hallway. The building that had seemed so quiet when I arrived was now in chaos. Employees ran from room to room carrying thick binders and stacks of photographs. Phones rang non-stop. Printers spat out pages faster than anyone could collect them. On every monitor, satellite images flashed from cities around the world. Each image showed the same thing. A house. Sometimes it stood in the middle of an empty field. Sometimes between two apartment buildings. Sometimes at the end of a suburban street where residents swore nothing had existed the day before. Every new image carried a red stamp. Unverified property. One employee looked up from his screen. Director. 3 more in Germany. Another voice shouted. 2 schools in Brazil. Someone farther down the hall yelled. Hospital in Seoul. The reports kept coming. Every minute, more houses. More impossible addresses. Director Hale never slowed down. She entered a large operations room lined with dozens of enormous screens. In the center stood a single digital clock. For the first time all night, the numbers changed. 11:58 p.m. It had finally moved. Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing. No one spoke. Director Hale looked at me. The clock only moves when a director is about to change. I stared at the display. So time never stopped. She nodded. It was waiting. One of the analysts suddenly gasped. Director. She hurried to his station. The monitor displayed live security footage from House 14. I leaned closer. The front door opened. Someone stepped outside. Me. Not me as I stood in the operations room. The other me. The copy. It smiled at the camera. Then calmly walked down the driveway and disappeared into the forest. Another analyst rewound the footage. Again and again. The result never changed. House 14 now appeared empty, as though nothing had ever happened inside. Director Hale whispered. It found a replacement. A knot formed in my stomach. He's out there. She nodded. He'll keep your life. Your name. Your memories. Until no one remembers there were ever 2 of you. I suddenly remembered my cousin. What happens when I go home? She didn't answer. Instead she asked, if your cousin hugs him, if your friends laugh with him, if the government records him, if every photograph now includes him. Then she looked into my eyes. How will you ever prove you're the real Ethan? The answer hit me like a freight train. I couldn't. Not if reality itself accepted him. Not if everyone else's memories adjusted around him. The room fell silent again. The digital clock ticked forward. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute until midnight. 1 minute until sunrise in this place. Director Hale removed a small silver key from around her neck. She placed it in my hand. It was surprisingly warm. This opens one door. What door? The first one. I frowned. The first house. The original house. She looked toward the wall map. Every impossible property came from somewhere. There is one that existed before all the others. The oldest. The hungriest. The one every other house obeys. My mouth went dry. If I destroy it? You don't. She interrupted gently. You can't destroy it. You can only make a bargain. I stared at the key. What kind of bargain? Her expression became unreadable. The same one I made. The operations room suddenly went dark. Emergency lights flickered on. A low alarm echoed through the building. One long continuous tone. Every employee stopped moving. No one panicked. No one ran. They simply stood in silence. One analyst quietly whispered, "It found us." The walls shook. Not violently. Just enough for dust to fall from the ceiling. Then 3 slow knocks echoed through the front entrance of the facility. Every face in the room turned toward the sound. 3 more knocks. Exactly the same pattern. Director Hale closed her eyes. It has never come here before. A security guard cautiously approached the front doors. Before anyone could stop him, He unlocked them. The doors swung open. No one was standing outside. Only a single wooden rocking chair, gently moving back and forth, resting on the welcome mat. The guard stepped closer, confused. "There isn't any?" He stopped speaking. His eyes widened. He smiled. Then, without another word, he walked outside, into the darkness. The doors slowly closed behind him. The security cameras showed him crossing the parking lot. Halfway across, he simply disappeared. Not in a flash. Not in smoke. One frame he was there. The next, he wasn't. The camera continued recording an empty parking lot. No one in the room spoke. Finally, Director Hale looked at me. "The houses have never hunted us before." She took a slow breath. "They're done hiding." The digital clock clicked over. 12 a.m. Then every monitor in the building switched to the same image. A satellite view of Earth. Small red dots began appearing. One after another. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Millions. Director Hale whispered the words no one in the room wanted to hear. "We've already lost." Then, for the first time since this nightmare began, the building itself spoke. Not through the speakers. Not through the walls. From everywhere at once. Final evaluation begins. As I left the facility that night, Director Hale's badge was still in my pocket. I still don't know if accepting it saved the world, or only delayed what was already coming. Sometimes, late at night, I drive through neighborhoods I've never seen before. Every once in a while, I'll spot a house that wasn't there yesterday. The porch light is always on. The curtains are always closed. And for just a second, I get the feeling that someone is standing behind the front window, watching, waiting. So if you ever come across a house that doesn't feel right, trust your instincts, keep driving. And whatever you do, don't knock. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more original horror tales like this one, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps more people discover these stories and it lets me know you want more. Leave a comment below and tell me one thing. Would you have opened the front door or walked away? Until next time, sleep with the lights off if you dare. Good night.